Hello, good evening, good morning, and welcome back to Between Two Pickles. This week's episode is once again brought to you by, what's that? The newly rebranded Block Bazaars. Now, they are formerly known as Crypto Recruit Raiders, and they are still a third party, not affiliated with Crypto Raiders, marketplace for raiders, mobs, mounts, and trading between yourselves. Block Bazaars is going to be coming to you soon, trying to get in on other crypto games as well. So this is going to be a really huge space to watch. If you're tired of fighting with OpenSea and paying for their gas fees, why not use Block Bazaars? And without further ado, I'm a noob. We have Between Two Pickles. And joining me today, we have, for the first time, one of the heroes behind the scenes, no longer senior game engineer, dungeon raid coder, and the one we all wait for to make those adrenaline-adducing announcements. It's Tsathir. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was pretty interesting to join because prior to this I was working at a bank, so like the culture there is pretty different. Uh, should I just jump straight into it?
Yeah, you can go for it. I was gonna say that was my first question. So with everyone that comes on for the first time, I like to ask about
Right.
your background and as much as you're willing to share. Not fully doxed, but I appreciate the camera being on. But yeah, so you're a bit about your professional background and then how you kind of transitioned into crypto and discovered the world, and then obviously joined Crypto Raiders.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, so actually, I started crypto in 2017. I was just like just checking it out, and then subsequently I got pretty burned pretty badly in 2018 by the crypto winter that we all know about in April. And I kind of took a break, came back 2021 in the third quarter, and I was invited back into this group of friends by one of my friends from 2018, and that was actually how I met uh, Ro there. So this one evening, like it was total luck. I was on Discord with him and we were just chatting, and then he was saying like, "Hey, I'm leaving Crypto Raiders, and I'm moving somewhere else, and they need a replacement." And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. Like this is like the gateway into crypto,
Right.
and so I kind of did like a um, trial sprint with Crypto Raiders. This was back at the start of November, and the first feature that I was in charge of was Fawn Dungeon. So part of the reason why like maybe it was too difficult when it first came out, I remember seeing a lot of complaints.
Yep.
Yeah.
God, I
So
still
I think
hate them. I still hate them. I have PTSD. Yeah.
that was the first time Palmer and I worked together on a dungeon because Palmer also joined shortly before me, like I think a week before me. So like we were both a little new to this, trying to figure it out, and we thought like new dungeon should be some difficulty to it. But yeah, that was a pretty fun experience, and that was also when runes were released.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first sprint with the team, and because I'm based in Asia, so like time zones pretty different, um, and you kind of have to get used to working outside of the hours, but
Was this
it
+8 GMT bias, right?
yeah, we're +8 GMT, so like meetings are usually like 1, 12, or like 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Testing's always at 7 a.m. these days for me, but that's totally fine, like it's I think it's what wakes me up, the excitement of just getting it going, and the community is great. So one of the things that Ro was telling me about when I first joined was that like, you're gonna love this. The community is great. Like whenever you release something and it's good, they will tell you, and if they hate it, they will also tell you. So yeah, that's something I really enjoy working with the team.
Yeah,
Um,
and so you literally just told me before we started that you were up till 4 a.m. Trying to fix the
yeah,
abilities release before it came out.
yeah. I mean, it's 4 a.m. for me, but for the rest of the team, it's in the afternoon. And
Yeah,
uh, I think it's pretty common to have these kind of hours. But kind of just you get used to it, and it's not too bad either because it's not every day that you do this.
yeah,
Generally, you get to dictate like maybe when you want to stop for the day and like when you're too tired and you just continue the next day. So like it's totally fine. Uh, and we have a few other great developers. So if I have to go, I know that we are in good hands
yeah.
to leave it to them. Yeah.
So you
Like,
mentioned you came from banking. Is that
yeah,
right? Yeah. So
yeah,
it sounds like this is like a dream switch from that kind of
it is.
droll, monotonous, you know,
Yeah,
pinching
it
pennies
is.
from the average people. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I never saw those pennies, man. I hardly saw those pennies. But it is a dream because um, I've been a gamer since young. Like, I think my first game was probably like Zelda, Castlevania on like the Game Boy. And yeah, like ever since then, I knew I wanted to be a game developer. I built out like a mini game on Unity in back in school. Built out some mini games on Phaser as well. Um, but never really had the chance to work on scale at scale on like this kind of games, especially like Web3 games. Where you're at the frontier, and I feel like we're constantly trying out new ways to break the boundaries. So this is really really exciting for me, and also because I think my main experience is in MMOs. So like Excalibur, like Dave, he's like CS god. Like Nick also plays CS, and they're all really good at it. I think I spoke to them briefly about Halo, and they were saying like how fun it is, and I'm just saying like no, I can't join you guys. Like you're gonna carry
Halo
me, and
now.
yeah, and you're just gonna like subsequently shortly kick me off the team because I'm just so bad at Halo.
So full on RPG, RPG
Yeah,
master, nothing
I'm
else.
full on
Yeah. Yeah.
RPG. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned Unity there, and I think we'll get to that topic eventually. But one of my big questions, first of all, is looking at from the gameplay side, but also the technical side, which maybe more your expertise. How important was that switch that we had from that client side to server side? And can you talk us through
Okay.
some of the data and logical reasoning behind that change and what it brought to the game?
Yeah. Uh, it was really important because prior to server side, we were on client side. And what that means is that there is no validation of the game states. So it would make it very easy for uh, players that try to game the system and try to like maybe hack their way through to give themselves like maybe better loot. Okay, like better loot is not technically possible, but they would be able to guarantee themselves wins. So that was an issue that we had for a short period of time. And that was one of the main motivations for switching to server side because we also want to eventually have PvP live. We want to have multiplayer. We want to have the overall. And all of this requires a common server for you to kind of host the players on. And that's just not possible on client side. So like these and also the Web3 side where we want to be able to give players rewards.
Yeah.
These rewards have to be verified. They can't just be data that comes from the client, like from the user, and like you just send and say like, hey, I should get like 100 aurum, and we're just like, okay, here you go. Like that's just not gonna work out for us. So all the logic is now on um, server side, and we're able to uh, verify every action that comes in, make sure that it's perfectly okay. Um, and this is really just the beginning, right? Like I mentioned earlier, once
Yeah.
I think right now it's really a matter of time. The reason why server side took so long was because we kind of so initially we had the V1 of server side back in January, and if you remember, we launched it, and there were some issues. And what we ended up doing was we kind of tore down the entire V1 implementation, and we just rewrote pretty much everything from scratch.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the reason why V2 took so long. Like we only launched it in March. It took like another maybe 6 weeks. Um, and that was a huge part thanks to Core. Core is a wizard, I tell you. Core is a
Right.
wizard. Yeah, he is a wizard, and
We don't
I
get
think it
to
would be
hear from
great.
him much, hey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we have him in the sweatshop.
Poor guy.
He's just like working away. Um, but yeah, so we rewrote things to make it much easier for future implementations. So that's why abilities came out so soon after. After this, we're gonna work on some other stuff. So we will be having. I saw some comments by 90% vegan on how I hate strength. That's not true. We are reworking defense, or rather melee resist, and we are changing that to defense. We're changing like the reason why we have to change it is because melee resist doesn't scale well with levels. It took like a percentage of 100, so there's only so far you can scale, and towards the end, like even if you have a uh high melee resist, like it's not gonna translate well because like defense does not scale on the same curve.
Right.
So
So
uh
that's why it feels
we
like, especially in Endless Dungeon, when you already have high
yeah
strength melee resist and you get that buff, you feel like,
yeah
oh well, it's not doing that much more because it's literally just not scaling.
exactly. So when we first had stats V2, strength was good, but shortly after, as there were more stats coming in, more levels coming in, like it just wasn't scaling well. So we're taking that apart, and we're kind of reworking it. Palmer came out with some brief uh, initial versions of the new formula that we're gonna test out next. I want to say Monday
Is
with
that available for the beta testers?
for the
Yeah.
testers. Yeah, for the testers.
And just for
Uh,
everyone, Palmer is Centurion, right?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Full docs coming soon, guys, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's coming out. And the other thing that we are working on, uh, I'm not too sure where on the priority this is versus enchanting, disenchanting, is that we're gonna have speed mechanic coming out. So speed is how if you've played, I think, is it Disgaea, or some JRPGs like Final Fantasy. You know
Okay.
how like you have turns for each player, and depending on maybe how fast you are, you kind of can see like a queue, to see who goes next. So
Right.
um,
So
right
it's
now,
essentially it sounds like a sort of initiative based speed
exactly,
system is coming.
exactly.
Yeah.
So right now, it's all 1-to-1. You hit, and then like your opponent hits, but soon that's gonna change, and that's gonna bring a lot of I think ways we can play around with the meta, because that introduces ways to differentiate agility from strength, and like maybe strength is slower but with like even more HP or even more defense, and agility is like much faster, and yeah, like maybe the base attack is lower, but you can kind of like play around with a lot more factors,
Yeah.
because right now all you really have is like attack, crit, defense, and maybe crit resist. But once you have speed into play, then that also ties in very well with abilities, because abilities you have the energy generation. So then you might have specific abilities that are better catered towards edgy builds.
Right.
And we're not 100% decided on edgy being the main um, determinant of speed, but
Right.
it kind of makes sense based on
Yeah.
like traditional RPGs.
Right. So, I mean, we just got abilities, and we'll talk about
Yeah,
that now. But I've only had a chance to play around with it for like 10 minutes, and already I'm in the stage, and my brain's just going, "What the hell am I doing? What do I pick? Who gets? You know, what is my build? What abilities work well? When do I use them?" And it's just gonna add so much complexity and decision making and variety and flavor to duels, especially, but also the dungeons, that when we add speed and initiative on top of that, I'm just what do I do? What do I do? I have no idea, but I love that. I love that feeling when you have no idea what you're doing in a game and you have to learn stuff. It's like that first time, it's great.
yeah. And I mean that's one of the things that we are hoping for, because like Saz was saying, on the monthly tournaments, and you see like Langley just trying to like say something at when they're battling, and there just isn't too much to say. But now with abilities, there's, I think, by the time April invitationals roll around, players would have hit level 10, and
Right.
then they would have three abilities to bring into battle. So that there's a lot more optionality there, and I'm not certain that speed is going to be in by the end of the month, because we might end up prioritizing something else.
Yeah.
But if it does, then you know, uh, it just brings so much more flavor. And that's precisely what we want. We don't want you to just
Yeah, for sure.
uh, spam a button. We want you to have to decide which is the best ability to play now. And maybe
Yeah.
you kind of counted that your opponent has generated 20 energy, and based on past abilities, because you don't know what abilities he brought in, but based on like maybe what has been cast previously, you kind of have an idea of like what the AI uh, might
Might
cast.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe like you want to cast like a brace, which increases your defense by 40%, because you think that he's gonna hit like a draining strike. Yeah, and like this kind of abilities that can kind of counter each other, or that you can combo. I think that's gonna add a dimension to like battles,
See,
and that's what we're really
I didn't
excited about.
realize that at all. I mean, I noticed it. I was like, "What is he? Do they have abilities? The AI? What's he doing? Is it doing
They
anything?"
do,
And they
they do.
do. So that's really interesting. All this stuff to take into tournaments, um,
Yeah,
and to keep in mind, especially for duels, right? That's where it becomes really interesting. But I do
yeah,
like the point as well about as someone trying to cast a tournament at the end of the month, now there's analysis and potential to say, okay, we know that this, you know, Helvey's running, brace and magic missiles or whatever it is. Probably not, because he doesn't write them, but um, and then there's analysis, and you could talk about the decisions and what went wrong or what went right.
yeah,
Hey, it sounds so fun, and obviously there's likely to be balancing and changes because it's just come out. But I think from a technical point, from a game decision point of view, and also from just game design, and the sounds are awesome too. The sounds are great. So I mean, it feels like a whole new game, right? A whole new game.
yeah. And with the hotkeys,
Oh,
just you can
hotkeys.
just spam
Now
the
that's a true
space button.
MMO kind of RPG type thing, right? Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Because my first games, like on PC, like big games that weren't like Game Boy or Nintendo DS, whatever, were shooters. So when I started playing RPGs, I was like, what? I've got so many buttons. What do I do? And if we get to stage with that, it's going to be really fun. I do like it. It's cool. Um,
Yeah, I
I
think
was I
my
was
first.
I was wondering as
Sorry, go.
well what your biggest inspirations were for the abilities themselves, and then like what the process, what the team's process is when you guys are building this this new part of the game? Like how you go through decision making on what types of abilities to implement.
Yeah, so the game designers, there's a game designer from the Unity team as well, Harvey, and we work together with them to kind of craft the initial versions or like the initial documents for the team to review. And I say we, I don't include myself because it's really Palmer and Pathway working together,
Right.
and they come up with an initial idea. Uh, so abilities, I think we started ideating since January or February, uh, because that was when we came up with the idea of talent tree and we
Yeah.
wanted to play with that. But talent tree is um, it's too big to come out in the short term. So we wanted to have something else that we could launch faster, that could bring like more optionality to the players. And what we came up with was abilities.
Yeah.
And so uh, they took it to the drawing board. They wanted to have maybe three abilities for each build. So there are nine abilities right now, and there are some that are more catered towards certain builds. So while they all work for whatever build that you have, there might be certain advantages for certain builds.
And is that
Um,
because of scaling or just inherently the way that they interact with your primary stat?
it's partly the way that they interact, but the differences might not be that obvious right now.
Okay.
Um, but we do intend to eventually. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to say this now that I think
No,
about
just
it.
say it. I think we need to
Uh,
hear it because I have no idea what I'm
um,
doing with them.
no, but once Talent Tree comes out, we do think that there could be ways, like maybe you learn like a certain talent that increases the attack of a certain ability. So
Right.
so that's the way that it could interact. So the talent tree might not necessarily just inflate the number of abilities, and then you have like 100 abilities to choose from. It might also like
Be
buff
buffs to
certain
certain ability. Yeah,
abilities.
like passives
Exactly,
basically.
exactly. Or
Yeah.
be a passive to like certain stats or certain weapons. So I think that's somewhat along the lines of how Path of Exile does it. I could be wrong because I only played it briefly, because the team was saying how good it really was. So I went
Yeah.
to check it out.
I've played
Um,
a tiny bit, like a couple hours as well. It's yeah.
yeah, same.
There's a
But
lot
yeah,
going on. Yeah.
there is, and that's one of the inspirations for the game designers as well.
Hmm.
And basically, after the document is up, we'll look at it as a team. We have pretty regular calls. We'll talk about game design. I'll talk about like the technical implementations, and um, that's kind of where we go back and forth. And it's not even just on the calls, like on our channels. We go back and forth pretty regularly because everyone's in different time zones.
Yeah.
So after that, we kind of decide on the initial version to implement. So the abilities that you see right now are very different from the abilities that were initially created that the testers saw. So the testers saw it first last week, and they gave us feedback on the balancing. We changed it. We
Right.
got feedback on Tuesday again, and we changed it some more. And then like Thursday, there was the kind of trial with abilities tournament. We got some feedback there. We also got some feedback on the subsequent testing later that same day. And like each round is just another iteration for balancing.
Yeah.
So we're not like um, fixated on the numbers that we initially arrive at because those are just ballpark figures, and we really just iterate based on community feedback and also the simulations that we run, because one of the things that we learned was the the simulations might work, but at the end of the day, it's really like the player perception on
Yeah.
on how it feels. Yeah, so like maybe the simulation tells you it's a 70% win rate for a new dungeon, but if like players are just not maybe it's a different build and or maybe they're just like constantly in the 30% where you just keep losing, and it really just isn't working out for them. So kind of
it has
have
to
to
feel good, and like when you're
exactly
playing it, and like your emotions are attached to it, and you want it to work, and it feels like it's working and doing
yeah
damage. Like you want the missiles to feel like they're missiles and destroying the opponent, right? Like not
yeah
just yeah. So I totally understand that as someone who's not designing the game but just playing the game as a bit of a hack. And I'm not very as competitive as some of these guys that just are fully min-maxing. And Sass is talking about that, the RPG min-maxers, which it sounds like you might be as well.
oh no,
No.
I don't think I am. um I don't think I have any raiders that can run heroic
Oh
awakened
wow, okay.
actually.
No, it's so tough. And yeah, I mean,
But
chat's
to be
going
fair,
nuts with the strength memes, but the
yeah,
strength raiders really struggle. Yeah, but yeah, this the strength update that you guys are working on does sound really cool. Because I, I really like you just said, I really feel like strength raiders feel fun to me. Like they feel fun.
hmm
Like it feels good to not take giant chunks of damage. But
right,
when you're constantly getting hit, but you can't do much damage back,
right,
even though it feels like you're pretty tanky, your end result is you're not as good as the other raiders. The super
yeah.
high agi who's dodging, or the super crit int builds. It feels like it should be fun, but it's just not quite there. So yeah, I mean, I can see how it's tough, but I'm really excited for that update because I do like strength raiders.
Yeah, I mean, part of, part of the reason. Okay, not me wanting to buff strength because my raiders are strength based as well.
Nice. Um, that's hilarious. I You mentioned briefly before about the switch to server side enabling multiplayer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I really want to talk about that because it's something that would be incredible, and it was brought up at the Council of Elders stream, um, and the team have really expressed this desire to have that true multiplayer experience, especially for duels. But yeah, where both players get to make choices and they're connected in the fight, like any normal multiplayer game. Um, so, how do you envision that being implemented into the game? I guess for duels first, and then multiplayer raiding and dungeons and that kind of thing. And what kind of challenges do you foresee? As someone who has to code that side of the game.
Right. So, um, technical implementation wise, I think that the way we built server side, it does allow us to scale towards um, live battles um, without without having to rework the entire thing. Uh, but it would require some lift from maybe the re-architecture angle, because once we have the live battles, then we would kind of have to cater for multiplayer in the way that we build it.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, we kind of have to consider both uh, situations when we're designing it, and that's probably going to be like the main concern that we have, how to design it in a scalable manner and not have to deal with too much tech debt in the future. Because whatever you put off now, you will have to eventually pay it back, and that was what we ended up doing, like for server side when we were building up the client side. Because client side we were going pretty fast at the start, and that resulted in a lot of tech debt that we had to deal with later.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to avoid right now as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like we can you kind of just have to try to find a balance. And the first thing, like you mentioned, that we will eventually shift towards is live battles. Um, Again, not too sure where this is on the timeline, because we have other things that we want to push out as well. But uh, it will likely be live battles before we have multiplayers. but don't quote me on that. And I think the concerns that we have for live battles isn't just from the technical perspective; it is also from the game experience perspective. On do you give each player maybe 10 seconds, 30 seconds to make a move? If not, like the AI takes over. Are you able to reconnect if you lose connection? Um, and kind of just more of like these. How do you handle uh, when players maybe don't make moves or have differences in latency? So there are a lot of other considerations that we have to look at besides just implementing like live battles. Um, so those are some things that we definitely have to look at. And for multiplayer, uh, I think it's the same concerns but amplified. Because like say if it's a 3v3 field battle, for example, um, if you have to wait, say each player has a minute to take their turn, you have to wait like 5-6 minutes before your turn comes, assuming everyone else disconnects.
Right.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not ideal. And I totally, you know, I mean, we're both in GMT plus 8, so you add latency as well, right? You know, when
No,
half the
yeah.
player base is in the US, the other half's in Europe, and there's, you know, just the two of us here in Asia and Australia being like, guys, I'm trying to take my turn.
No, I would say the latency on that end, it hasn't been too bad for me. Has it been really laggy for you?
No, it's been actually really good, and I think that's a bonus of having it kind of be turn based. Is it's not a huge factor. Whereas if you're playing FPS, you know, you just get destroyed at 150
Yeah.
plus ping. Yeah,
Uh, I would say that because we switched from Heroku to Google for server side. It's much better in terms of latency because they have data centers around the world,
yeah,
so it shouldn't be too bad for us,
yeah,
regardless of where you are. But I was thinking latency maybe more in terms of like your local internet provider.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
but yeah,
it becomes a, if you have a good connection and you're
yeah,
there, then someone doesn't, then you just spend your whole time waiting.
exactly.
Yeah. So lots of challenges to think about when it comes
Yeah.
to this grandiose vision of live 3v3 battles, especially maybe with lots of people.
But it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah,
Um, we especially in invitationals because once we have live battles, that opens the doors to an actual, I don't know, Raider Con tournament.
it's more of a competitive scene, right? Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
People on the stage, right, battling it out.
Yeah. And if you have like guild v guild, it's like 5v5s, a bit more like all the MOBAs that we have today. I think that is when we can really like say, hey, this is honestly as good as any other game out there, like that's in Web 2.
Yeah,
Because right now we are still getting there, but at some point we can really say that we are there, and I think that's what's really exciting. Because
mm.
like I think that this entire process has been really enjoyable for myself because uh, as a gamer, you don't look at all these considerations. All you like, what I would do is I would go on Google and I would find like maybe what's the best stats to allocate, what's the best skill, what's the best class, and then I do that. I might consider the formulas that go into these allocations, but otherwise, you don't look at the same considerations that you do as a gamer, and this it makes me respect the games that I've played so far a lot more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I mean, just hearing you speak about some of these different ideas, I'm sitting here going, yeah, I would never have thought of that actually. That's, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, if I'm just playing the game, I'm just not in my mind. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like just a really really good experience, and if we do get to that stage where we're at RaiderCon and the
We
game's
will. We will.
amazing, we will. There it
We
is,
will. We
confidence.
will.
That's what I mean. Love that. And then we can look back and say, look where we came from. Look, I mean, especially you guys, the devs. Look what you've built. Like, fantastic. So hyped.
100%. And it's really not just the devs. A big part of it is everyone else in the team,
Mm,
because everyone is giving input, regardless of whether you're dev or not,
yeah,
regardless of whether you're a game designer or not. Everyone, you get to access like maybe some of the data that we have when we're testing, and give your input. You also get to test it yourself, and then we also have the community who gives us feedback. So I think that's, like I said at the start, one of the things I really appreciate about Raiders is how tight the feedback loop is, and um, it's great to be able to hear when some things aren't working out as well as you intended it to. So there was, I think there was this saying by one of the Path of Exile game designers where, if players don't like something, uh, it's either that it wasn't built right or the communication was poor.
right.
So that's something that we have
Like
to
that.
try to work on still. But if it is something that we are confident in, then we have to communicate it better to the community.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
but
I
it's
think you've
great, man.
got those I think you've got like a good platform to do that, with now, especially with Council of Elders starting. And I mean, Sass is just awesome to listen to every time he speaks. He just
He
oozes
is.
like he's thinking like 20 steps ahead. He's already got
Yeah.
ideas that are happening in 10 years. um and I think that, with Discord and, like you said, the community feedback being so strong, that communication is definitely there. And I haven't really seen that in a lot of games. um, Maybe that speaks to this kind of, I would call it novel. I'm not sure if you've ever played games that have done this before, but the live shipping um,
Mm.
model that basically Crypto Raiders is, I feel like, developing. It doesn't seem like I've seen that around before. Alpha games or beta games are kind of like a test or a couple tests of a mostly polished game, but this is like constantly, every update, every little bit you're adding, we iterate. Even if it's live for the community, after the beta testing, it still feels like we get to test. We're having input. You guys are listening, changing, putting your ideas back in, putting our ideas back in, and we've got such a wealth of degen gamers, and really really strong, like, opinionated, and also but like really good at figuring out these things, like Helvy and Unsung and Runner 5, and just everyone. I can't ever get to anyone, but on Council of Elders, all these ideas are amazing. I'm just going, how do you guys think of
100%.
this? How do you think of this? It's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully it doesn't feel too much like you're testing for us when we release something, because then that means it's too unpolished.
Well,
Uh,
maybe not testing, but what would be a better word for it? Trialing. It's the same thing, but like, yeah, it
yeah,
definitely feels like, it's not really a test. It's like, okay, we'll just improve on what we got, like you said before, iteration, right?
yeah,
Which is awesome. And it really seems like you guys are having, like you said, that internal communication from the devs to the people that aren't devs, are having a really good, just a really good feedback loop internally. Like, okay, we want this done, the devs can do it, or we have this idea, we can all do it together. It's I get that feeling, and you don't get that a lot from many places. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, uh, I think Discord only became a
DJs.
popular medium for games with Web3, so that's also not a 100% fair comparison.
Okay, yeah,
Um, yeah,
but still,
but yeah, but still, I'll take that. I'll take that.
yeah. No, so I mean, yeah, I'm really glad that we get to have as much input as we do. or other people do. I just sit here and yell at my screen because I misclick run away when I should be raiding, and then I'm like, what did I just do? Oops. When can we get the run away confirm button, please?
I mean,
For idiots like
hopefully
me?
that won't happen anymore because we shifted runaway. So it's at the top of the screen right now.
Okay, good.
It's gonna be pretty hard to fat finger that, even on the mobile right now.
Okay, that's awesome. I think we'll take some serious questions from the chat from anyone who's here as well in the next few minutes. But yeah, lots to be excited about, and yeah, I'm really glad you're part of the team, man. It sounds like you're doing crazy work and loving
Thank
it as
you.
well, which is good. So if you guys have questions, anyone in the chat, if you got questions, hopefully not just when questions, but yeah, let us know. So are runes being updated with the strength test, or are there plans to update runes in the future? That's a good one.
I
From
think runes
Deegis.
will not be updated at the same time as strength because some of these balance changes we want to isolate them so that players are able to accurately identify the change in strength and see whether that um, does feel different, or
Right.
because once you change too many things at once, then there are too many confounding factors. So that's also one of the reasons why we didn't change strength or rather defense with abilities.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. But will you change runes in the future? I
Yeah.
noticed before Deegis is saying, have you ever used Escape Artist Tsathir? Have you? When buff?
Maybe when the devs give me an escape artist. I don't have one.
Well, there you go.
No, I'm kidding. Yes, I've used it while we're building it. But we definitely will relook at the runes. Um, but hopefully with abilities now, that is more optionality even if you don't have the runes.
Right.
We will balance it out so that it doesn't feel like an outdated part of the game because we
Yeah.
do want runes to stay relevant, um, in whatever shape or form that it might be. So what you see runes now might not always be what it is in the future.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, we will keep it relevant.
Because that was one thing I noticed when I just had my very short play around with the new abilities and battles is, yeah, so if I basic attack, I get energy, and then I can use an ability, but using a rune gives me no energy,
Yep.
but it's still strong if it's if it's a good rune. um,
If it's a good rune.
so there are a lot of choices now in the game already, and like you said, level 10, we're about to hit the level 10 XP cap soon, which will give us 3 abilities per battle. So there's a lot of different things that we're gonna have to think about when we go into these battles. Um, and especially in the duels, it feels like they're over so fast sometimes. Like I don't even know
Yep.
what I'm doing, uh, because I don't. Number one, but because people do so much damage, and I don't have the experience yet to figure out what abilities to use when, and if I should use runes or not. I think. Well, I'm not sure how you guys plan to tackle that, but maybe you can talk about that a little bit before we get some more questions from the chat.
So we are still in the process of looking at runes and how we want to improve it,
Thanks, Tina.
because of all. But this will come in after abilities because we still have to look at the community feedback on abilities and then balance that, and then look at how rune stacks up against the new version of abilities.
Right.
So this will have to come in sequentially. But regarding what you said about HP, um, I, we will also be looking at the HP calculation
Okay.
uh, with the defense change. So, strength isn't just gonna get like a defense buff. The HP that strength builds have might also increase.
Okay.
Yeah. So that will also increase like the duel's duration because we noticed that damage has been scaling. And like sometimes these people crit for 100 plus, and if you're an
Yeah.
edgy build and you only have like 200 plus HP, then like you're out in like 2 or 3 hits, right? And,
Yeah.
and that's not super exciting. So we are looking at scaling HP better with damage so that these battles last longer, and with this optionality you will you will have time to trigger them, because if it's over in 2 or 3 hits, even if you have like an OP ability or like an
You don't
ability
get
that
enough energy,
fits
right?
exactly
Yeah.
exactly yeah. So this is definitely something that's coming in the pipeline.
So
uh
it sounds like an overall rework to health. So everyone should have a bit more. It just extends
it
your
is an
livability a bit,
overall,
or
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah. But I'm not sure if everyone is going to get the same amount of benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's cool. That's really cool. Tina had a good question here actually. If there's a new dungeon in Act 3 planned, or is everyone focusing on stats and Unity right now? I know Sass has been tweeting a lot about Unity, so
Yeah. The new dungeon will not. So the previous iteration of each dungeon was every 3 weeks.
yeah.
But with Act 3, Dungeon 1, we're giving it potentially slightly more than 3 weeks. So maybe 4 or 5 weeks. We haven't really landed at when we want to drop it,
Okay.
because that will be the first dungeon that we release with Unity. And we are considering maybe a difference in how we want to go about it. So, like with Act 2, the final dungeon, The Awakened, we tried to make it a bit more fun, like build your own adventure,
Yeah.
right? Depending on the stat that you have, depending on the build that you have, maybe you're more likely to evade, and then you get like a particular boss,
Yeah.
or like yeah. So we are trying to make dungeons less monotonous, and make each dungeon a little more different, and uh, that's something that we are working on. So I don't have a date for you on when the next dungeon is coming out. Uh, yeah,
But Unity
but
first, basically, is what you said.
Unity first, basically. Yeah,
So Unity is on the horizon. Have you
it
been
is.
involved
It
with that a
is.
lot?
Uh, Mainly because they use the same backend, so we're working with them on integrating with our server side, uh, and kind of just working on getting it to the end where we can get it to our testers and subsequently to the community.
So what is, maybe you can explain this for me and anyone else who's an absolute noob like I am. What is it? What does Unity mean, and what does it look like? Is it a web app? Is it an app I download and I launch the game from there, or is it just a different website? What does it mean exactly?
What Unity means in the short term,
Yeah.
I believe that the first iteration that's coming out will be a WebGL build, which means that it's still going to be on the web.
Okay.
Uh, but we want to create standalone builds that are available to the public. So what this means is that you'll be able to download a client on your desktop or on your
From the
phone.
website or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to just play it. You don't have to go to the website. Uh, it means better mobile support because right now mobile isn't a priority for us. Because we are aware of Unity coming, right? So
Yeah.
like we're trying to focus more on the server side right now, rather than over optimizing Phaser when Phaser is gonna go out soon.
Which
Um,
makes is planning for the future, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just like which is a better use of your manpower.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it yeah, better graphics, better support for mobile. I think just better gameplay experience. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, if Sass's tweets and this or anything, Unity should be here within a month. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, right? Provided no issues.
I'm not gonna say anything. Provided no issues.
Provided no issues. Yeah.
That's an important caveat right there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, things always pop up. I'm happy to wait, 2 or 3 months, but it's cool that's the main focus, and I think Degis is trying to help me out here and saying Unity helps with a ton of responsive scalings for resolutions and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm really excited, and I need to get on these abilities and start using them now as well, because I have no idea what I'm doing in dungeons.
Yeah. I think that it's gonna be a lot more fun.
So much coming
with Unity, because it's such a powerful game engine. It's been around for so long, and so many people use it, right? So there's a lot more, support for it, and I think that it's gonna make the features that it's gonna improve the kind of features that we can roll out, and maybe the rate at which features can be rolled out.
Right.
Yeah.
And does Unity run off, like, if I get a mobile app? Is that what you mean by more mobile support?
Yeah. So there will be a mobile app and that you just launched. Sweet. Like any other.
There you go,
game,
BME. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this will be the first mobile game I'll have to download in like years because I don't play them. Yeah. No, this is really cool, man. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I think, and all the planning for all of this was
thanks Singularity.
Even back from last year when they launched Unity, or rather when they started talking about Unity, we already started planning for it. So like the bridging in game and all that, it just makes the currencies not require a wallet, which helps with just have like a game application, and you don't have to you don't have to worry about like having to integrate it with MetaMask and all that.
So everything happens on the server side, basically happens in the game.
So like if you bridge Aurum in, then you have Aurum in the game, and you don't have to include implementations for Web3, which might help us when we try to launch it on the Play Store, for example.
Right.
Because right now there's still, to my understanding, there is some friction for apps that have Web3 integrations.
Right.
So this is definitely going to help us.
Yeah.
To get to mass market. Yeah.
And is the questing tweet that SAS put out, moving questing to, they call it liquid staking, is that going to operate the same way? We'll be able to do that from the game client itself, and everything happens from there, or
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not really involved in that conversation.
Okay.
That would be more of a SAS or Nat or MacArthur question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Beerme wants to know actually if that mobile version of the game with Unity launches at the same time, or if that just
it'll launch later.
Okay.
So the first version that's going to be rolled out is the WebGL build, and shortly after, we'll launch the standalone builds.
Awesome. There's a lot of things coming. I mean, we literally just got abilities, so everyone go figure out what abilities are good, and then you can tell me so I don't have to figure it out myself. Get on it. More stuff coming very soon. I got some cheeky questions for you right now that you have to answer.
Sure.
Pickles on burgers, yes or no?
Yes, 100%.
He's in. Yes. Approved.
You gotta have it, man. You gotta have it.
That's good. I like it. We rate it. All right. We'll this is a good one actually, because I forgot to ask this. Dee just asked earlier, but will we get to see the opponent's energy bars at some point, or do you have to count them and keep track of that?
We will have the energy bar. Because we got the feedback for that only after the tournaments, and we were concerned with some other changes, so we didn't have time to implement that. But we will include that.
Okay. Yeah, I ran a lot of my runs yesterday too, so I can't try out abilities, but I got some guys coming back from questing anyway. So you mentioned at the very beginning you were in crypto pretty early and then took a break, but if you had
Yeah.
to, Dogecoin or Shibcoin?
Man, I don't have either.
No, but you got to pick one. You got to pick one. Which one? Gut
Uh,
feel, go.
Maybe Doge because Tesla has talked about Doge,
Okay,
so
yeah.
that seems to have more mainstream
Right.
utility.
Okay, what's your go-to like band or music genre that you listen to when you're like deep in code?
I listen to Eminem when I'm coding, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, like he gets you pumped, and you're just like,
I
don't
like
care if
it.
it's
Yeah.
2 a.m. I'm just working.
Eminem's like my favorite rapper because he's the only rap that I listen to. So it's not much of a sample size, but that's cool. Nice. I'm sure there's people that'll respect that. So listen, we've been going for an hour now. Don't want to take up more of your time. I'm sure there's lots of abilities that need fixing because Tina's breaking the game. Uh, so yeah, man, thanks. This has been really cool. Great to hear more of the technical side and what's going on from your end on that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate it, mate. This was awesome, and we'll see you again hopefully another time.
Yeah, I'll be happy to be back. And
Yeah.
just one last note, by the way, that's a chin up bar. It's not a shower curtain rod.
It is a chin up bar. Confirmed. Tsathir is a beast. Do we want to leak something as well? We might have the first community/dev meetup in a week's time.
Oh yeah.
Tsathir's coming
No,
out
it's in 3 weeks.
in 3 weeks. So we
Yeah.
might post a picture on Discord of Tsathir and me chilling. That's a big leak, guys. But yeah, other than that, in 2 weeks' time we got Excalibur coming on. So if you got questions for Excalibur, DM them to me. DMs are always open. And Sass is gonna sponsor he's gonna give us a rare raider to give away on that stream for the big episode 10. He did say Tsathir was gonna give away his mythic mob today, but I think he was trolling. Okay, big no. Big no on that one. But yeah, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thank you.
D not drawn. Dina message me. I'm looking for Dina drawn. Why can't I find you? Dina drawn.